week went well, man. Last week was a good card. It was awesome. I'm kind of pissed at myself. I did fall asleep in two fights, and that was not because the fights were boring, but because I was exhausted. But I'm looking forward to another great night of fights coming up here on Saturday.
Yeah, man. It was not a great night. Look, we always tell you we are going to be as real as it comes. We are not going to sugarcoat you. It wasn't a good night for me. It was not a good night. I did cash one lineup. I mean, it was not a good night for me. Look, I'm just being completely honest with you, Pete. Man, it was unfortunately, don't listen to my own advice about not taking the first fight of the night. I take the first fight of the night. That screws me. I had too much Dom Reyes.
Yeah, I think Dom Reyes was definitely the one fight that screwed up a bunch of my lineups. Outside of that, I thought everything went really well. Oddly enough, you called and mentioned Jan Blachowicz possibly doing that, and how he could break the slate, and goodness, he did. There were some crazy performances. A lot of low 7K guys came through, but it was just a great card to enjoy. Even if you didn't have the best sweat going on, as far as making money off of it. It was just, the talent was crazy. The fights were great. I just thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about some of the fighters that had a great performance last week. I mean, you first off, you look at Juan Espino. He had a great performance. Goes out there. If you had to have him in your lineup, he goes out there. I mean, unfortunately, I had a little too much Jeff Hughes on FanDuel, and that was just roster construction, plain and simple. I mean, we talk about this every week here on the show of, there's fighters you want, but it's all about how can you fit those fighters in your roster construction. Sometimes it can be a little difficult.
Yeah, I mean, MMA DFS is not always rostering everybody you like. It's rostering what works to make a lineup. And there are plenty of times you look at your lineups and you're like, this is so bad. And against what I would normally do in a situation, you're rostering, a GPP dart, so to speak, that, virtually the reason they're priced that low is because the likelihood of them coming through is very minimal. And stranger things have happened in the sport of MMA, and you see upsets all the time, unlike any other sport. So, don't discriminate against the 7K fighters and, people stepping up on short notice because people have been bringing it during the quarantine, Jason.
Yeah, man, it is, and this is one of those, fight nights, UFC Fight Island number 4 that, it's not a sexy card. I talked about it earlier today on my podcast. I haven't tweeted out the link to my podcast, but it is out. It's been a crazy day for me. I've been going nonstop, and I got a couple of fighter interviews I gotta put together tonight to get them on YouTube of fighters that are fighting, this week. But I said, I mean, like, look, this is it's not appointment television watching for me. But there's important fights on this card, and particularly the two female fights that we're going to talk about here momentarily. And as I mean, literally about an hour before, you always talk about this. When you're breaking down film, you do not even look at the salaries until after you've broken down the film. And so I'm just looking at the salaries, and I'm going up and down this one. I'm like, there's not one that I'm like, ooh, that's a little expensive. Ooh, that's a little low price. I kind of feel like this card is priced effectively.
I kind of like these cards more for DFS. And, obviously the big, amazing stacked cards are nice because you have amazing matchups and it attracts more people. But these cards that are often overlooked are ones that I really excel at. And I think that, you can get an advantage on the field. With some matchups and just diving in hardcore, and checking out the weigh-ins. Make sure you check us out on Saturday when we'll have our live before lock for our updated picks or whatever has changed. But yeah, Jason, I don't like to look at the salaries beforehand. I don't like to look at the betting odds either because I don't care what Vegas is saying sometimes, and I like to go off my own reads, and then I kind of compare and contrast. And then when I made the sheet today, I'm looking at it and I'm like, there are some fights where it's like, okay, I like this spot more than the favored fighter, but nothing crazy.
Yeah, I mean, you can see the sheet right there up on the screen right now. Of course, that sheet will be up on Awesemo.com this week, so you got to check that out. And when we talk about the main event of Holly Holm and Irene Aldana, one of the stats that's right there that people can see that, to me, Pete, stuck out to me when I was on UFCstats.com is his strikes per minute. Holly Holm 2.75, Irene Aldana 6.16.
Yeah, it's interesting. Holly Holm's going to be a very popular play based on, her resume, who she's fought, how many times she's fought in 5-round fights. She has a wealth of experience between MMA and boxing, and is most famously known for knocking out Ronda Rousey. In the UFC though, when you stare at her UFC record of 6-5, it kind of takes you back for a second. You're like, I really thought Holly Holm was better in the UFC than that. But the truth behind that is she's fought kind of the top of the division all the time. I mean, she's had how many championship bouts, how many fights for number one contendership. So, I mean, the girl is talented. It's the age factor. She's 38 years old. We talked about it before the show, Jason. You start to lose a slight step, and then that younger, hungrier fighter, coming up the ranks that has equal skill set of you can just get the better of you on that night. And I slightly favor Aldana here. Now Aldana's numbers are kind of inflated from some crazy performances. 6 strikes per minute, does absorb 5.9 strikes per minute as well. So that ratio is a little crazy because I don't want her to take so many strikes from Holly Holm. But the good thing is Holly Holm really doesn't throw that much. She kind of is a counter fighter. She sits there. She waits for you to initiate. She will, throw a lot of kicks, a lot of side kicks, a lot of those kicks to the knee and a quad. But I think that Irene Aldana at 7,800, somebody that I'm looking at, and because it's 5 rounds, you would like to say that favors Holly Holm based on experience. But I kind of like Aldana. What are your thoughts on the fight?
I'm kind of liking Aldana as well because of the output. Now, do I like her more on DraftKings and FanDuel? Yes, I do. I mean, it's $20 for home on FanDuel, $19 for Irene Aldana. You mentioned about the $7,800 price tag, so I would say I like Aldana more in terms of from a side of a DraftKings side as opposed to a FanDuel side. But also, let me ask you this: Holly Holm turns 39 in 2 weeks. Is the age starting to become a concern for you?
I mean, she's really done well and hasn't really taken so many shots where she's not like at like a Diego Sanchez type of end of the book, so to speak, where he's taken so much damage in her career. You know what I mean? Like Holly Holm, she's lost fights, but the fights that she's lost, some of them are really close. And she's always in a close fight. She's well coached. Jackson Winklejohn, Coach Wink is like her mentor and works with her extensively. I do think that Aldana can match and possibly excel in the boxing department, even though Holly Holm is a southpaw. Usually a longer fighter than her opponents, comes in with a slight, 1-inch reach advantage in this matchup against Aldana. But I do think that Aldana's boxing could, pose some problems against Holly Holm. She has been finished as of recently, so maybe Aldana can clip her, coming off a very nice knockout. But the one thing I think from a strategic point of view is Holly Holm will most likely be looking to take this fight to the mat. And I know that sounds crazy, but with her wrestling coach in New Mexico, she's leaned on her wrestling to really get things done, especially up against tough opposition. So I wouldn't be surprised to see her do that. Now in 5 rounds, how does that work? Does Aldana, maintain that 93% takedown defensive rating? I'm not sure. I hope so, and I do think that Aldana pulls it off.
Yeah, it's one thing to mention about Aldana. She's had 8 fights in the UFC. 6 of those fights have gone the distance. So if this is a fight that plays out on the feet, and based on what her history has been with landing 6 strikes per minute, that could be a decent score for her coming up here on Saturday night, Sunday morning in Abu Dhabi. Of course, this fight will probably go off around 8 a.m., 7 a.m., 8 a.m. local time. Of course, the prelims here in the United States start on Saturday night, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. Not sure what time Live Before Lock is. I gotta kind of look at what other sports are going on, but we're gonna try to get there as quick an hour, 2 hours before lock. So just follow us on Twitter. I'm at Jason_Floyd. He's at Pete the Heat MMA. We'll be letting you know when Live Before Lock is going to be. but it's an important fight. There's two critical fights here on this card. We'll get into the second one here in a moment. But yeah, I think, Aldana, and we're seeing it, she is getting some good ownership. So that's something you got to pay attention to as we do go on. By the way, if you do have any questions in terms of these fights, leave them on YouTube. If it happens to be, you see the countdown there on the left-hand side, the fights that are coming up. If it is about a fight that we're currently talking about, we'll ask you that question there. But if not, we will get to questions here at the end of the show. By the way, coming up after us will be NBA Live Before Lock. Get you ready for Game 1 of the NBA Finals. I will be editing away some videos here tonight. That's definitely what is going to be going on with me. But Pete, let's move on to the co-main event of the evening, and that is Jorgen de Castro versus Carlos Philippe. De Castro 8,900, Philippe 7,300. That's on DK. $18 on FanDuel for De Castro, $14 for Carlos. 1.1 times for Jorgen on SuperDraft, 1.55 times for Carlos. Obviously, both of us are very familiar with Jorgen de Castro. A guy that look, he went on the Contender Series, and really, he, because of his age, was not going to be put on a developmental deal. Gets into the UFC. He's now 1-1. On the other side, Carlos, he's 0-1, losing to Sergey Spivak. This should be Jorgen Castro's fight to lose.
It's an interesting matchup. I'll tell you what, when Philippe was fighting Spivak, I liked Spivak a lot because I thought he was going to be able to get rid of him quickly because Philippe was hard to find footage on. And Philippe actually impressed me in his fight against Spivak. And I'm being serious, Jason, because the guy moves his head really, really well. And he throws really, really aggressive boxing combinations. Now, that is about the extent of it. He does not really throw any kicks from what I have seen. And Jorgen de Castro is the complete opposite. Jorgen de Castro throws hands and bombs leg kicks. Okay. Now, they're both relatively green, so to speak, as far as MMA experience. I think it's an even fight, similar height, similar reach, crazy finish rate for both of them, above 75% for both of them. And I think de Castro should be looking to set up his leg kicks. Now, one thing to note, in his previous fight against Greg Hardy, he threw a couple he was bombing away at Greg Hardy's leg and then ended up hurting his foot and shin really bad that he abandoned the leg kicks for the rest of the fight. And it was somewhat of a staring match. And he was kind of just losing the second round and the third round, not really engaging because he was, too caught up on how his foot and leg were doing. Now, how recovered is that foot and leg? You don't know until he goes out there and he throws a couple kicks. Now, if I'm Philippe, which I will have exposure to him, I listened to some interviews. He said that he studied de Castro so much. He knows everything about him, everything that he's going to do. And personally, Jason, I love it when I hear that, because a guy like de Castro, if you're not prepared for leg kicks, so like Greg Hardy probably just accepts fights and just, moves forward. Greg Hardy got leg kicked like crazy. If de Castro kept it up, he'd probably finish him. A guy like Philippe, if he utilizes checking kicks, which is hard to do because it's a timing thing, I kind of like him here. Now, I like both these guys. It's like a 60-40 for me because I think this is a fight you need to have. I can't tell you if Felipe's going to check kicks or not. We'll have to see. So I will have exposure there at 7,300 because he throws bombs and can definitely knock out de Castro. And de Castro can easily do the same thing to Philippe.
Yeah, I think it's a fight you have. It's heavyweight MMA. There's a good chance the fight only goes 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and could ultimately end up being an optimal fight just because of that first round finish. And looking on the FanDuel side of things, 18-14. Look, if you think Carlos can pull it off at $14, that makes roster construction much easier over on FanDuel because I haven't started. Typically, I don't start putting my lineups together until about Saturday. I use these first couple of days of just kind of evaluating who are the fighters that I want to take some chances on. Mm-hmm. And it's heavyweight MMA. Anything can happen in heavyweight MMA. We both know it. But, of course, one of the things that we're always looking at is the ownership projections that Alex puts up over at Awesemo.com. And to get access to those ownership projections, you got to sign up right now for an Awesemo Plus MMA Weekly Pass for $8.95. All you got to do is go to Awesemo.com right there, top left-hand side of the screen, you'll see an Awesemo Plus. Click on that tab, sign up for an Awesemo MMA weekly pass for $8.95. It gets you owner projections, fighter projections, and the top fighters tool. So you got to take advantage of that. I will tell you, one of the tricks that I do, and maybe this can help out people who are maybe going to sign up this week for a weekly pass, is add Fantasy Crunch to your account. Add Fantasy Crunch to your account. Add Fantasy Crunch to your account. I can't say that enough. And then what I do is I do dummy crunches. Then I go into ownership. I look at ownership. Then I change my exposure in Fantasy Cruncher. Josh has got a lot of great videos up on the YouTube, who obviously does a lot of the NBA stuff and a ton of stuff over at Awesemo. It can be relayed to any sport, but I'm telling you, Josh has they're 20-minute videos. Go look at that, and man, it'll help you out so much.
Yeah, I can't state it enough. Fantasy Cruncher is a lifesaver. I still do my little traditional things of what I do. I hate a fighter, get him out of here. And that's probably what not a lot of people do. They have exposure to everybody, but I'm old school, man. So
I'm trying to think, who did I unclick last week?
I
feel like every live before lock, I just need to say, who did Jason unclick? Because if I unclick somebody, go put that guy in your lineup.
Say, man, sometimes it happens. I hear you.
Yeah, I think Shajar Eubanks was the one I unclicked. I maybe had one or two lines because I still do. I do hand build lineups. It's easy to hand build lineups in MMA. But if you're doing 150 lineups, yeah, you can't do that. You got to have an optimizer to help you out there. But that is something we will talk about. Next up, I talked about how there's two matchups on this card that to me are notable fights as we head forward. The other one is Jermaine de Rondamie taking on Juliana Pena. De Rondamie, 8,600 on DK, 7,600 for Juliana Pena, $18 for Jermaine on FanDuel, $12 for Juliana on FanDuel, which I like that price. Now look, Pete, this is an easy one to break down. It doesn't take here's Pete's breakdown. Jermaine keeps fighting on the feet. Pena takes the fight to the ground. Whatever happens, that's who's going to win. Is my analysis of you spot on right there?
Yeah, it's pretty spot on. I mean, Jermaine de Rondamie is very, very talented and one of the champs that's kind of forgotten. And it's crazy to me that she was a champ. Blows my mind. But she was. And she comes in at 5'9". When she's in that octagon, Jason, she looks like she's 6 feet tall. Mm-hmm. She looks giant compared to her opposition. She really does. So she has a 71-inch reach, comes in 2-inch reach advantage in this matchup against Juliana Pena. Now, Pena, I was so high on Pena when she was on The Ultimate Fighter, and then she started fighting in the UFC, capturing some big wins, battling injuries throughout her career. Then I believe she was pregnant for a while, so she had her child. So she had to step away from the octagon for a little bit. I think the girl's good. I really think Juliana Pena is really, really good. But I think her skill set is limited. Now I can say the same thing for Jermaine de Rondamie. Her skill set is limited. Pena has some great takedowns and great ground and pound. Not the best jits, but she's able to get the fight to the mat. She can, impose her will and really rack up significant strikes and everything. I feel like Jermaine de Rondamie is going to be a little bit too big and a little bit too strong. She has some underrated takedown defense coming in at 71%. I think her length could pose some problems. I think her jab, her right cross can pose some problems. She does have crazy knockout power too. So honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if she caught and hurt Pena. But Jermaine does have only a 44% finish rate. So, all of that together, probably not my favorite fight to target. I could be wrong. I could see Jermaine trying to keep it striking and Pena try to take it to the mat. So what that equals out to is a lot of clinch work against the cage. So I'm guessing this is going to be not the best DFS performance.
On the FanDuel side of things, if Juliana's continuing to go for takedowns and Jermaine is able to stop them, she can rack up some points. And we've seen it with fighters who you think of John Dotson against Merab, a month ago. I mean, he stopped 14, 15 takedowns. And even though he lost, he still had a decent score. So that's one of those things that when you're talking about if you're a FanDuel player, think about fighters who can get the fight to the ground, maybe go for submission because there's some points value there. But also think about the fighters who might be able to stop the takedown And that's why Jermaine and I think Juliana as well. I think they're both good values on FanDuel. Now over on DraftKings, I think in terms of Jermaine at 8,600, you got to hope she gets a finish. If she goes to decision, does it work out the best for you? I don't know. I don't know about that.
Yeah, I probably won't play either one of them too much on DraftKings. Now, I'll have to see how the entire card shapes out, if we lose any fights, how the weigh-ins look. I mean, if one of these girls comes in looking horrible, of course, we're going to take advantage of that situation. I do think that, Jermaine Durandamy is she's getting older. She's 36. She has accomplished a lot in her career, from kickboxing now into MMA. She's kind of just doing this to do it and just enjoys it. Whereas Pena, I think, is she has her eyes on the prize. Now, take that for what it's worth. I don't really know. I mean, she already has fought Shevchenko. So what are you going to do in that situation? So, limit your exposure to this fight, in my opinion. I don't think it's the best one.
Yeah, Juliana mentioned today when she was talking to the media, basically a win here she believes gets herself a title shot. And, look, I think that depending on how these two female fights go on Saturday or Sunday morning in Abu Dhabi, it's really going to decide who's going to be next at 135 pounds. Next up, we're going to move over to the men's division. In this one, we got Townsend in this one as the underdog taking on Dusko. What's your take on this one? I'm not big on Townsend, and we were kind of talking about before of you kind of see some value in him here.
Well, easy. I don't know if I see value. I'll have exposure to this fight. Now, I think that Todorovic and Townsend is a good matchup. Both come in over 80% finish rate. I'll throw some X factors out there, and let me tell you, as a fighter, these X factors definitely can influence your performance, or, it can influence you positively or negatively. Townsend is facing a lot of personal issues. Now, you're talking about trouble in his family. He just lost two of his brothers. And it's kind of recently. So instead of being on the sidelines and grieving, he's choosing to fight and, try to use this as somewhat of a coping mechanism and delaying the grieving process. So I don't really know how that's going to affect his performance in here. We saw Walt Harris against Alistair Overeem. Now, granted, the pressure of being a main event was something crazy. Let's just say it. Todorovic, I cannot say this guy's name. Todorovic, he's 9-0, relatively green as far as in the limelight. Townsend does have 33 fights, 21-11, and I do believe he had over 30 amateur fights as well. Now, not the most skilled guy. Let's be real. Not the most skilled guy, but has an 81% finish rate out of 21 victories, Jason. If this guy is completely motivated and is using this negative energy in his life to really refine his craft, and he comes in laser focused, 7,100 is interesting. That's all I'm going to say. 7,100 is interesting. So I will use him in a few lineups as a GPP dart throw because I think a lot of people are just writing him off.
Samuel says what Pete means is sleeper or break the slate pick.
Yeah, it definitely could break the slate because look, you're talking about him going up against Todorovic. I said it. Perfect. He's undefeated, has crazy hype. You look up a highlight video of Todorovic. You see that Townsend's on an 0-3 skid his past 3 fights. The chips are stacked against Townsend in this situation. Now, maybe Todorovic is completely sleeping on him. That happens too. You underestimate your opponent. You think you got a cupcake matchup. Next thing you know, you're waking up to bright lights. So we'll see. But truthfully, Todorovic should be able to get this done. That's with all that being said, if he's a prospect, he gets this done.
Yeah, we'll see what happens in terms of that. Next up, we have got Kyler Phillips taking on Cameron. Kyler was supposed to. It was I spoke to him. I guess it was about 2 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago, and majority of the time when I'm interviewing a fighter, before we even start the Skype recording, I go, hey, FYI, this is still your opponent, right? There's no opponent change. For whatever reason, I just didn't mention the Kyler. And then during the interview, he's like, funny thing is, a manager called me this morning to let him know that his previous opponent is out. But here's the thing that I have a concern with Cameron in this one. He is on a 6-fight winning streak. All right, that's a plus. That's a plus. The record of his opponents during this winning streak: 0-0, 1-1, 0-0, 4-0, 0-1, and his most recent win, his opponent was 3-14. When I look at that, and it can't be the be all end all of who he is as a fighter. I look at that and I just say, why?
Hey, what weight are these guys at? 135? Can I make 135? Because if so, line me up with this opposition.
Bro, could you make 145 at this point?
It's a struggle, bro. I don't know. But let me tell you, you talk about Elsie comes in, like you said, pretty record, 10-4. It's a good record. If you have a 10-4 record, that's pretty nice. 100% finish rate. That's something nice too. It makes you go, okay, this kid's legit. Now, granted, if you're fighting weak opposition, you're going to have a high finish rate. That's just the truth. Now, Kyler Phillips is a minus 450 favorite. That is insane. 9,200 price tag. He could be the chalk of the slate. And the kid's good, has crazy volume, has really good jiu-jitsu. I would say that is his specialty. His jiu-jitsu is his specialty and can take your back really, really easily. Now, I know LC has been training out of the Tap Out Ranch, or not the Tap Out Ranch, the BMF Ranch, Cowboy Cerrone's ranch. He doesn't have a significant size advantage. Phillips has been under the bright lights at the big stage more than he has to this point. But in all reality, Jason, Phillips is only 1-0, right? So it's not like the odds of minus 450 is insane because he's just talented. And I think that's what's really inflating his odds. Now, to be 1-0 and be a minus 450 favorite, I mean, Vegas has to think really, really high of you. And, Phillips should win this fight. I really think that he should win this fight. And, the kid's, stepping up on relatively short notice. Short notice guys during quarantine have been killing it, bro. So it's Phillips for me, though. Yeah. Phillips for you, I would imagine.
Yeah, it's Phillips for me. I think he's very talented. Young guy. He's 25, 26 years old, still a very young guy. You can check out the interview I had with him over on the MMA Report YouTube channel. It's right there. You can listen to what he had to say for me. But, yeah, he's definitely where I am going to go there. Now, I want to mention a tweet I saw earlier this week, and I sent it to you, and it was in relation to Carlos Conde, where the newer MMA fans probably have no idea of the natural-born killer that is Carlos Conde. And because the fact is, hasn't won since 2015, and you think about since his win against Nick Diaz, which then led to that title unification matchup against George St. Pierre, it's been an awful road for him here. Now he takes on Court McGee. He's at 8,300. Carlos Conde, 7,900 on DK. Over on FanDuel, $16 for Conde, $17 for Court McGee. I guess the question is what Carlos Conde comes rolling through into Fight Island. My guess would be that Court McGee is going to try to make this a dirty fight against the cage.
Yeah, Court McGee needs to do that. Now, Carlos Conde has lost his past 5 fights. Court McGee is 1-4 in his past 5 fights. So, the matchmakers, I have to say, this whole card, I thought this card was well matched. And I don't know if, Sean Shelby, that they look at these stats too, because you'll see, we'll get to some of the fights. Some of the stats are even close. It's oh man, okay, I wonder if they're using this, to help them as well. I know that they use the UFC records and everything as well. And they definitely use recent stretches because Carlos Conde, 0-5 in his past 5 fights, and Court McGee 1-4 in his past 5. So this is a really, really even fight based on where they are in their careers. Carlos Conde has been training a lot at the BMF ranch while Cowboy Cerrone was training. Conde is such a dynamic striker, comes in, the taller man, has the better finish rate. Out of his 30 victories, Jason, he has a 93% finish rate. That is insane. Now, you mentioned how the casual fans don't know who Carlos Conde is. They probably don't know who Carlos Conde is or what the WEC is either. And the WEC is really what got me into MMA. And I'm going to blow your mind. I was this close to having an opportunity in the WEC.
Really?
I was this close. I never told you that before. I was so close, and it was amazing. I was stepping up as a late replacement, and it just didn't happen. But regardless, Carlos Conde has a wealth of experience. Court McGee, wealth of experience. McGee needs to work in his takedowns. He really does. Now, I listened to some interviews from both of them, and McGee hasn't been able to go to Heckman at all, hasn't been really able to go anywhere. He's been kind of doing it at his house because of the quarantine, and a few of his teammates, like real close teammates. So it's not like he's having an amazing camp. He talked about how his son was one of his main training partners too. So take that for what it's worth. I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, he needs to be in shape, and he needs to, clock in when the cage door shuts. So I think this is going to be a pretty close fight. McGee needs to make it dirty against the cage. But whenever you make it dirty against Carlos Conde, you have to be aware of his knees up the middle, because one knee up the middle can end your night. And I'll have some exposure because I need somebody who's in the 7K range that can pull off an upset and get it done for me. I don't hate Conde, but I think the more likely scenario is McGee grinds him against the cage and gets a decision.
Yeah, I mean, it's ways I sit here because of the price point. I go, okay, is this a fight that we have to have? Like there's that, because it's a 79, 8,300 fight on DK, 16 and 17 on FanDuel. I just kind of wonder, does it have the recipe to be optimal, or is this more of a cash play?
It's a good point. I'll tell you some stats that kind of really stick out to me that I think are glaring holes in people's style. And it's Carlos Conde's takedown defense coming in at 36% in his UFC career. Now, against a guy who should be the bigger, stronger guy in Court McGee, who averages 1.7 takedowns per 15 minutes, he doesn't have the best accuracy with his takedown. So it's like maybe he could just land one around or two the fight. But, it's a close matchup. It really is. And I do think that McGee's going to be able to get it done. But 7,900 for Carlos Conde, the natural born killer. Are you kidding me? I'm going to have plenty.
Just look at the prop bet for fight to go to the decision.
What's it?
Minus 210.
Yeah, I think it's going to go the distance.
Trying to see where is that. I mean,
now that doesn't mean that they can't score well, because McGee, if he takes him down, Conde is very, very dangerous with his jiu-jitsu off of his back, but does get beat up a little bit while he's playing jiu-jitsu.
There is one fight later on in the card. We'll talk about that. Fight goes to the distance, minus 350.
Oh boy.
By the way, if you're looking to check out the odds for the fights, you got to go over to Awesemo.com, part of Odds Shopper right there at the top of the screen. We'll let you know about those odds. But do want to let you know, of course, coming up right after us will be NBA Live Before Lock, getting you ready for tonight's Game 1 of the NBA Finals. We'll let you know about a promo we got going on through October the 4th. Get a $5 Awesemo Plus weekly NBA pass for the NBA Finals when you use a promo code Orlando at checkout. That's $10 off the original price. It gives you access to Awesemo's leading NBA DFS player projections, ownership projections, and more for every showdown and single game slate of the inaugural NBA Bubble Finals. This offer is valid through Sunday, October the 4th, which I also call when Buccaneers beat up on Pete's Chargers.
Yeah. It's going to happen. I mean,
you'll be getting some text messages after the game's over.
If you lose to my Chargers, honestly, there's no hope for you this season.
Wow.
We have a good defense, but, I mean, we got our rookie playing. Come on.
Beat up on the defense, too.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Chris Harris not playing. Did I say it right? Chris Harris isn't playing? I haven't looked at the injury report. I don't look at the injury report till Friday.
Yeah, exactly. It means nothing. It's that, means nothing until the day before.
Yeah, Friday is the most important injury report that you got to pay attention to. Of course, we got a lot of great programming over here for NFL DFS right here at Awesemo.com. Next up, we're going to talk about Jorgen against Josh here. Jorgen, 9,300. The most is he most expensive? Yeah, most expensive fighter on this slate on DK. $22 over on FanDuel. What's your take on it?
Yeah, give me Jorgen, bro. I like Jorgen quite a bit. I was high on Jorgen in the matchup against Andre Fili. I thought that he could come through in a underrated spot. I knew Andre Fili had the takedown advantage, and that's basically why he lost that fight. And that's why if you look at the stat sheet, I will have posted on the website, comes in 10% takedown defensive rating, which is absolutely horrible. Jordan's 10-3 with 100% finish rate. Culibao is 8-1 with a 63% finish rate. Culibao, I just don't know if he's really UFC level. Now, anytime you see these high-priced fighters, obviously their opponents are coming in super low owned and can break the slate if they win. I don't see that happening in this matchup. Culibao is decently – he has a slight reach and height advantage, which actually blows my mind. Jorgen comes in 5'9", 69-inch reach. Culibao is 5'10" with a 73-inch reach. So you're talking 4 inches. It comes down to styles. And I do think that Charles Jorgen looks like he's in some of the best shape of his life. If you go to his social media, he looks incredible. The guy has explosive hands. Yeah, he's just aggressive, man. I think that he can get us a finish. I'm not a fan of paying 9,300, but sometimes you got to do it.
Yeah, it's he'll definitely be a part of my lineup. Joe, I appreciate you in the super chat. He goes, you already know what time it is. My famous question I love asking. Locks of the night. Mine is Dusko, TKO, KO, or Pena by submission.
I don't see the Pena by submission. I think that you go buy a roll of lottery tickets. I don't see that's going to happen. And the reason I don't see that is because Jermaine, she doesn't have a good ground game, but she has underrated takedown defense. And let me click on her name right here, and let me see her opposition. She could get TKO'd on the ground. That's what I can definitely see happening. But as far as submitted by Juliana Pena, unlikely. I would much rather in that scenario say that Todorovic TKO prop is better.
Moving on in the car, we'll talk about Jordan Williams, 8,700. Of course, a veteran of the Contender Series, now in the UFC, taking on Amavov, who, by the way, love the nickname the Russian Sniper. Man, yeah. Love that nickname. That is a great nickname here. What's your take on this one?
My take on this is you have a guy in Jordan Williams who has kind of bounced around from some big promotion. You think about what he did over in Tachi, but Bellator, I always like it when I see fighters fighting in Bellator, and then getting a shot on the Contender Series, getting multiple shots on the Contender Series. If you really look at it, he had a no contest and then lost a split decision, and then finally comes through and knocks out Gregory Rodriguez in round 1, and he looked aggressive. Now, in his losses, he's been KO'd by Dwight Grant, and he's also been stopped by Rodrigo Vargas. So when he does lose, he goes for the fight. So sometimes his defense isn't the best and he gets caught. Now, against a sniper, you don't want to be slipping. And, Imavov is 8-2, has some great skills, real good ground and pound, decent submission skills as well. So I think that he'll be looking to take it, stand up a little bit and take it to the mat where things could be a little bit easier against Williams, who could be slightly undersized. Williams is 6'1", Imavov is 6'3". Both come in 89% finish rate for Williams, 88 finish rate for Imavov. My goodness, Jason, circle this fight, get exposure to this fight. I think somebody's getting finished, whether it's ground and pound from the sniper or, Williams catching a guy that possibly fatigues after round 1. So, I will actually say that Williams probably shocks people and is tough enough to get it done, but I wouldn't be surprised if it went the other way.
By the way, Andrew wants to know where you can grab one of those Pete the Heat hoodies at.
Oh, appreciate it. Yeah, I don't know, man. I think I gotta make a little merch shop or something. I think we got a collab. Whenever I get a fight, hopefully it's soon, I can definitely get some merch up for you guys.
Yeah, rumblings are you're looking for a fight.
Yeah, rumblings, man. Bro, I mean, goodness, what else I got to do? I got to harass these promoters, I think.
Yeah. Next up, Samuel in the super chat. Appreciate you. He goes, what are the fights that Pete are more excited about? Fellow New Englander, time for some clam chowder.
Yeah, man. Appreciate it, Sam. Appreciate the support, everybody. We'll get to it, but Casey Kenny, anytime this kid fights, I like watching Casey Kenny. I think he's so talented. Obviously, the Carlos Conde fight, because I'm a WEC guy. That's what got me into MMA. I was just a kickboxer. And I saw the WEC. I'm like, boy, I got to try to do this. Uriah Faber, Carlos Conde, Donald Cerrone, how, he became my buddy. But, yeah, man, I'm looking forward to those fights.
Next up, we got the female matchup. Then this is the matchup I told you was minus 350 to go the distance. Luke Boomi versus Junyu Fray. Fray 7,700. That is, I guess the question is when it's so likely to go the distance, is there some value here on either one of these fighters?
I think there is value, and this could be a sleeper fight because guess what, Jason? It's going to be on the feet, and they both love to strike, and they are both talented. So you should see a ton of action. Now, Junyu Fray, if people don't know who Junyu Fray is, 9-5 overall in MMA, has some big wins. She's very, very strong. One of the strongest girls that you'll see. Like, she's a really, really strong athlete. Luke Boomi, 4-2, relatively new to MMA, made the crossover from Muay Thai, a little boxing as well. Trains out of Tiger Muay Thai. Anytime somebody's coming from Tiger, it's almost like you gotta really pay attention because they are so well coached. I want to go out there and live there for a little bit, get some training in. They're so well coached, man. I saw the circuits that they were putting her through, pads to defensive grappling to offensive grappling, back into having people having her back. I mean, they prepare you for the matchups. But punch, leg kick is Luke Boomi all day long. Punch, leg kick. Anytime you leg kick somebody, you're there to get answered with a big counter shot. Junyu Fray, 7,700, has beaten better opponents than Luke Boomi, despite Luke Boomi coming from Tiger Muay Thai. Luke Boomi is very strong in the clinch, but Junyu Fray, 7,700, sign me up, man. I think that she can get it done, and is a little bit disappointed from her loss to Kay Hansen.
Yeah, that when I saw that salary, that was the one salary that jumped out to me above all else. When I was looking for, we always talk about that. We're looking at 8K and under of who are the two fighters that we can kind of, help build a roster around. And that is definitely one that stuck out to me. Next up, we're going to talk about Casey Kenny taking on Alatong. Casey Kenny, 9,000. When I talked to him, he mentioned about the right hand that Alatong has. But in a way, he basically said he's not really shown me anything I haven't seen before.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of my favorite fights to watch. I don't know if it's the best DFS performance, and it's because they're pretty evenly matched. I mean, slight height and reach advantage to Casey Kenny. Goes for 3.6 strikes per minute. Alatong a little bit behind that, 2.7. If you look at the takedowns, though, it actually surprised me that Alatong goes and lands 3.5 takedowns per 15 minutes. And Casey Kenny only lands 1.35 because Casey Kenny has really good wrestling, but he's kind of I just want to punch you in the face. I enjoy that style of a fight the most. The kid has grappling and wrestling. He beat Ray Borg, was able to get out of some bad positions. So, I wouldn't be surprised to see Kenny wind up on top in some grappling, phases and some transitions and whatnot. Alatong coming in here, 100% takedown defensive rating, probably because of his opponents, not really because he has the best. 50% finish rate for both of them, Jason. It's probably going the distance, but Casey Kenny proved that, he can get a finish over Luis Smolka. I mean, amazing performance. The kid is really talented. 135 pounds. I think he's going to be a force to reckon with. I like him quite a bit, and I do expect Alatong to be decently popular at 7,200, thinking that, can possibly take down Casey Kenny and control him.
He did kind of mention to me that this being Casey Kenny of he might stay on Fight Island just in case. Just in case.
I love it. Are there some big fights coming up on 135 pounds?
Well, next week you got a 135-pound main event of Corey Sandhagen and Marlon Moraes. I mean, that's
oh my gosh, I didn't even remember that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Look, I think if you can afford it, and it's I think it makes a lot of sense. Of course, tomorrow night, Thursday night, NFL football, Thursday night football, Jets and Broncos, and if you want to, gotta take advantage of this offer.
Jets and Broncos.
We have over on Awesemo.com. Get an NFL Weekly Express Pass for $3.95. Alex came up with this pass. He wanted to offer a pass for a simple pass to help you get through these single game showdown slates. $3.95. This gives you access to the NFL Showdown single game contest, our single game player projections, ownership projections, the top place tool when you purchase a pass, and getting the player rankings, lineup builder light ownership rankings, and the Top Stacks Express tool. It's our best offering for an Express Pass. So head to Awesemo.com/join to purchase an NFL Express Pass for $3.95. This is good for the NFL Showdown and single game contest. So if you're going to play like a $4 contest, pop down to $3.95, and I'm telling you what, it's going to help you out big time. These are the same tools Alex uses to create his lineups. So you got to check out our NFL Express Weekly Pass. Now, Pete, we got one more fight left here before we get into the listener questions. Luigi against Justin Ayari. The one thing that I pulled up on Luigi here, first fight since September 22nd, 2018.
Yeah, man. It's, it seems like, each week you have a guy coming off of a huge layoff. I can't tell you how these guys are going to come in and, respond to the bright lights and being away from competition for so long. Ayari is 1-2 in the UFC and has fought the better opponents. Comes in with the experience advantage here at 16-5. When I was breaking down the fight film, I actually thought that his price, I kind of guess in my head what I think the prices are going to be. I actually thought he'd be a little bit higher. I thought he'd be about 8,400 or so because of his experience, because he fought Darren Till. He just seems like a better mixed martial artist. Vendramini has 100% finish rate, probably will be decently popular at 8,000, but I just can't trust him. I know that he has some really high-level BJJ, but does have decent hands as well. Seems like he's around Team Alpha Male, or at least used to be around Team Alpha Male. I don't know if he's one of their jiu-jitsu assistant coaches or whatever he is, but it's crazy he's only 24. I was trying to think of why he was sidelined for so long, but really couldn't find too much. Ayari had a lot of training footage as well. I've seen more of him in the octagon, and I kind of like him in this matchup. Probably not a fight I'll get too much exposure to, but I do feel like somebody's going to get sloppy. And whenever somebody's away from the cage for so long, they usually have one good round in them, and then they fade really, really hard. So I favor Ayari in this matchup at 8,200. Obviously, I hate this price tag, of course, but Ayari for me.
Yeah, and 17-16 over on FanDuel. So yeah, it's I think I'm just gonna stick to my golden rule, Pete. I think I'm gonna stick to my golden rule.
I think if it's your rule, you should stick to it.
Yeah. Let's get some listener questions in before we get out of here. As of course, NBA Live Before Lock is coming up next. Next up, Samuel goes, will these a non-stack fight? I don't like stacking fights. I just don't.
I probably won't stack a fight. There's usually better options. Rarely it'll happen, but there's usually better options.
Daniel says, in regards to betting, what are your thoughts on exclusively betting results-based bets? I've experimented the last 2 weeks, and the odds are so much better. I have to win fewer bets. I guess he means by taking the prop bets of win by submission, TKO. Yeah, if you land those, you can make money that way. I mean, but you got to look at it are you getting more value in the fighter by taking the prop or just taking them straight up?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard enough to sometimes pick fights, and then if you guys pull off like miraculous submissions or the ref doesn't stop it, when he should. So you're dealing a lot with the, officiating where he's on top, ground and pounding them. They should step in and call the fight, and then it goes the distance. So it's definitely a sweat that way, but the odds are boosted for sure.
Same last top 2 upsets.
I would say, I think that Aldana gets it done. And I'd say Jinyu Fray. I mean, it's not really like bold upsets by any means, but I think that those are 2 logical ones.
Top 2 heavy favorites.
I think Jorgen is nice. I really do. I like him quite a bit. Heavy favorites. I do like Kyler Phillips too. I really do. The kid's super talented. It's just whenever you're facing a guy who's stepping up on short notice, they really don't have much to lose, and that means they're dangerous.
Dave says, if you entered 20 lineups, how much Townsend?
Probably 1 or 2. Just because.
Mm-hmm. Top 2 GPP plays.
Well, I think somebody from the main event. Scratch that. I don't think that at all. I think the Castro Philippe, one of those guys. Mm-hmm. That's a GPP fight. I like to target fights, and get my exposure to the correct fights. I do think that Williams and Imavov is another GPP fight that I'll be targeting.
Yeah, that was the one I was going to point to. Samuel says, is it me or is there a lot of love for the underdogs in this card?
I think it's typical. I mean, usually you have about 2 on average underdogs come through. Every now and then you'll see crazy underdogs come through. I think last week was kind of abnormal. I think there was 4 or 5 or something weird like that.
Yeah.
If I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, man. Yeah. It was, I want to say 4 under 8K options came in one. I want to say.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Next up, Samuel says, what fights am I excited about? Duranami Pena.
Really?
Yeah, I think it's because of what it means for the division. I think good chances the winner of that. If Pena wins, I believe she will get a title shot. And just because of knowing these fighters, I'm really interested in Casey Kenny and Kyler Phillips, just because I know the guys.
Yeah, makes sense.
So yeah, that looks like let's see here. We'll talk more about this in about 3 weeks from now. But Joe's saying, he goes, "What are you guys going for between Khabib and Gaethje?" We gotta know the price. I mean, there's going to be some value on Justin Gaethje, man. There will be some value on Justin Gaethje.
Yeah, I'm going Khabib, bro. I'm going Khabib. I do. I mean, this guy just lost his dad. You might see Khabib 2.0. There's no way I'd want to stand across the. I mean, granted, if I would love to stand across the cage from him and have that opportunity, but it's a very dangerous spot that Justin Gaethje's in.
Let's end on our picks, our straight up picks for the card. I have gone back and forth all day on the main event. On my podcast, I picked Holm. I guess I'll stick with Holm.
Yeah.
But DFS wise, I think there's some value there on Aldana. Give me Castro. Give me Pena for the upset. Give me Dusko. Give me Phillips. Give me McGee. Jordan. Imavov. Fray. Kenny. And give me Ayari.
Okay, I'm going Aldana. I think this is the hardest one of the whole card. I really do. I will say Philippe. I don't feel good about that. Durandamy, Phillips, Todorovic, McGee, Jordan, Williams, Fray, Kenny, Ayari.
But, of course, we will be back here on Saturday for Live Before Lock to get you ready for UFC Fight Island number 4. Starts Saturday night, 7:30 p.m. each time. So join us here on Saturday for MMA Live Before Lock. Coming up next here on Awesemo.com, it'll be NBA Live Before Lock. So keep it locked here to Awesemo.com.